Ever since the Shroud first really appears in history, there's been controversy about it, and there have been questions about its authenticity.
Lines of code are flying across a screen as a computer scans the famous Shroud of Turin. Suddenly, the system flags a hit. It found a repeating pattern of math buried deep in the fibers that the human eye can't see. This isn't just about a faint image of a man anymore.
For hundreds of years, this simple piece of cloth, 14 feet long, worshipped by the faithful for centuries.
The machine has revealed a structured order that follows laws of science we are only now starting to understand. We are looking at a piece of history that behaves more like a computer file than a burial cloth. But here's the catch. The AI says this data wasn't written by a human hand. Silent face. In the darkness. Basically, the cloth was acting like a piece of camera film centuries before the camera was even a dream. Scientists started to wonder how someone in the Middle Ages could have known how to make a photographic negative. They looked for paint, ink, or dyes, but they found nothing. The color doesn't soak into the cloth. It only sits on the very top of the threads. We are talking about a layer so thin that you could scrape it off with a fingernail without hurting the linen. It's not that simple, though, because the color isn't even a substance you can name. It is actually a change in the chemistry of the linen itself. It is as if the fibers were scorched by a sudden flash of energy that only hit the very surface. What most people don't realize is that this image is also perfectly three-dimensional. In the 1970s, experts at the Air Force Academy used a special machine meant to map the moon. They put a photo of the Shroud into it, and it spit out a perfect three-dimensional map of a human body. Usually, if you do that with a regular photo, the nose sinks in and the face looks flat or messy. But with this cloth, the math was perfect. The darker the spot, the closer it was to the fabric. Hands down, this is the only two-dimensional image in the world that holds 3D data like this. It suggests that whatever made the image was able to act through space, getting weaker as it moved away from the body. It wasn't a hand touching a cloth, it was something else. Some people think a forger might have used a hot statue to burn the image into the linen. But here's the deal. If you press a hot statue into cloth, the heat spreads and ruins the sharp lines. The Shroud has lines so crisp you can see the weave of the fabric right through the man's face. It is like the image was printed by a light that didn't have any heat. This has led to some wild ideas, and that's putting it lightly, because some experts think we are looking at a literal time print left behind by a body turning into pure light. If that sounds like science fiction, you aren't alone in thinking so. But the data doesn't lie, and the data says this cloth shouldn't exist. What most people don't realize is that the blood on the cloth is even more confusing than the image. Scientists tested the red stains and found they are real human blood, type AB. But the blood got on the cloth before the image did. There is no image under the bloodstains, which means the blood acted like a shield. If a forger had made this, they would have had to paint the image first and then add blood, or vice versa. But the way they overlap perfectly is impossible to do by hand. So, here's the deal. We have a photographic negative that is also a 3D map made of real blood and scorched air. It is a puzzle that has kept the smartest people on Earth guessing for over 100 years. Even the way the man is laid out is strange for an artist. Most medieval art of the time shows people with very long fingers or weird bodies. The man on the cloth is a perfect human specimen. He is about 5 feet 9 inches tall and weighs about 175 pounds. Every muscle is in the right place, showing a body that was in a state of extreme stress. And get this, his hair even has traces of pollen that only grows in a very specific part of the world. Researchers found dust and pollen from plants that only exist near Jerusalem. This suggests the cloth didn't start in Europe, even if that's where it was found later. But here's the catch. The pollen isn't the only thing that points to a specific place in time. There are faint outlines of coins over the man's eyes. When experts zoomed in, they found they look exactly like coins used during the reign of Pontius Pilate around the year 30. They even spotted a tiny spelling error on the coin that matches real coins found in museums today. How would a fake maker in the year 1300 know about a rare coin with a specific typo? They wouldn't. Basically, the cloth is covered in tiny wow factors that make it feel like a real object from the 1st century. It's not that simple, though, because if the coins are real, the theory of time travel starts looking better. Some wild theories suggest that the shroud isn't a burial cloth at all, but a record of a human being uploading themselves into another reality. They think the flash of light was a digital event, a transfer of information so massive that it left a physical burn on the linen. The crazy part is that the AI found that the man's hair is still moving in the data. If you look at the microscopic math, the hair fibers show a blur that matches someone falling at high speed. It is as if the image was captured while the man was falling through a hole in space and time. The setup for this mystery was just getting started, as a team of scientists decided to play dirty. Hidden history in the threads. In 1988, the world thought the mystery was finally over. The church allowed a small piece of the shroud to be cut off and sent to 3 famous labs. These labs used carbon dating to figure out how old the plants were that made the linen. Everyone waited with bated breath. It's not that simple, though, because the results came back and shocked the entire world. The labs said the cloth was made between 1260 and 1390. That put it right in the middle of the medieval period. The news headlines were brutal. They called it a clever fraud and said the case was closed. For a few years, it seemed like the shroud was going to be forgotten by the world of science. But here is the catch. The scientists who actually worked on the cloth for years didn't buy the results. They knew the math of the image didn't match the tools of the 1300s. A chemist named Raymond Rogers decided to look at the leftovers from the sample that was tested. He spent years checking the chemistry of those tiny threads. And get this, he found that the sample wasn't even the same material as the rest of the shroud. The sample threads were coated in a plant glue and held together with cotton. The rest of the shroud is made of pure linen and has no cotton at all. What most people don't realize is that the sample came from a corner that had been repaired by hand after a fire. Nuns in the 1600s had patched the cloth to save it after a fire almost destroyed it. They were so good at invisible weaving that they mixed new cotton with the old linen. The carbon dating labs hadn't tested the shroud. They had tested a medieval patch. Basically, they got the date of the repair, not the date of the original fabric. This made the 1988 test a huge disaster for science. When other experts tried to look at the data, the labs wouldn't share it for a long time. When the data finally came out, it showed that the 3 labs didn't even agree with each other. Their numbers were all over the place, which is a big red flag in any study. And that's putting it lightly, because some think the whole test was a setup to stop people from asking questions. But you can't stop a mystery this big. Newer tests using X-rays and light waves have given very different answers. These tools look at how much the linen has aged on a chemical level over time. These tests place the cloth at roughly 2,000 years old plus or minus a few centuries. So, here's the deal. We are back to square one with 2 groups of scientists fighting over a piece of string. One side says the carbon is king, and the other says the cloth is a patchwork quilt of different ages. So, here's the deal. If the cloth really is 2,000 years old, it means it survived things it shouldn't have. It survived at least 3 fires, being moved across the ocean, and being touched by thousands of hands. Every time someone touches it, they leave behind new carbon, like skin cells and smoke. This makes carbon dating a nightmare. It is like trying to find the age of a clean white shirt after it was dropped in a mud puddle. The mud is going to make the test say the shirt is much newer than it really is. Basically, the labs were looking at the mud of history instead of the shirt of the past. Beyond the dating, there is the mystery of the invisible weave itself. The way the corner was repaired is so complex that even modern machines struggle to copy it perfectly. It's called the French weave. To think that someone did this so well that it fooled the world's best labs for 30 years is incredible. It's not that simple though, because if the corner was a fake, then what about the rest of it? If the main image is so high-tech, why would the forger need to hide the age with a repair? It doesn't make sense. And get this, the AI found that the math in the image continues right up to the edge of the repair and then stops. What most people don't realize is that some theorists think the shroud is actually self-healing. There is a wild theory that the energy that made the image also fixed the fibers of the cloth. Every time the cloth gets damaged, the mathematical code redraws the linen. This sounds crazy, but it would explain why the cloth hasn't fallen apart after 2,000 years. High-tech sensors have found that the threads are actually stronger where the image is. Basically, the man's face is a shield that is keeping the cloth from rotting. This means the image was already there when the patch was added. It proves the image is older than the 1300s. Hands down, the lab test was a massive mistake that slowed down the truth for decades. But while humans were busy arguing about chemistry, the machines were busy looking for patterns. The AI was about to see something that no human could ever have spotted on their own. It was a discovery that would make the age of the cloth look like a small detail compared to the data it was holding. A new kind of light was about to shine on the ancient threads through a digital eye. Calculation of the holy flash. We are living in a time where artificial intelligence can see things we can't even dream of. Researchers decided to give a powerful AI a look at the Shroud of Turin using the highest resolution scans ever made. They used a trick called principal component analysis. Basically, it's a way for the computer to ignore all the dirt and weave and just look at the raw data of the image. The machine didn't care about religion or history. It was just crunching numbers. And get this, what it found was a hidden layer of math that is perfectly organized. It found that every part of the image follows a geometric rule that is the same across the whole 14 feet of fabric. The AI discovered that the man's face isn't just a face. It is a map of ratios. The distance between the eyes, the curve of the chin, and the length of the nose all fit into a mathematical grid. What most people don't realize is that this grid is too perfect for a human to draw. Even the best artists in history, like Leonardo da Vinci, have small errors in their work. But this image has zero errors on a microscopic level. It is like a digital file that was printed onto the linen using a laser. So, here's the deal. The AI found that the image isn't on the cloth, it is encoded into it. This means the information was placed there all at once, not stroke by stroke. And that's putting it lightly, because the AI also found that the image contains information from the inside of the body. It spotted the outlines of bones and teeth beneath the skin. This is something called internal topography. It is like a modern X-ray, and a photo were combined into one single layer. How could a forger in the Middle Ages know about the roots of a man's teeth, or the shape of his hand bones? It is not that simple though, because the AI says this data is only visible when you look at the math, not the picture. It's like a secret message that was waiting for us to invent computers to finally read it. The machine also checked to see if this could be a natural accident. It looked at thousands of photos of people under sheets and miracle images from all over the world. It found that none of them had this hidden math. Hands down, the Shroud is the only object in history that has this level of digital-like order. This has led to some very wild theories. Some researchers think the image was formed by a coherent light source, which is a fancy way of saying a laser. But a laser would burn the cloth. This light didn't burn it. It changed the atoms in the linen. Basically, the Shroud is a piece of high-tech hardware from the past. But here's the catch. The AI found something even weirder about the symmetry of the man. While one side of the body matches the other, there are tiny glitches that look like motion blur. It is as if the body was moving and standing still at the same time while the image was being made. The AI thinks the body might have been transparent for a fraction of a second. If a body becomes transparent and energy passes through it, it would explain why we can see the bones and the skin at the same time. So, here's the deal. We might be looking at a record of a body turning into energy. This is the kind of thing you only see in particle physics labs. What most people don't realize is that the AI also found a signature in the math. No, it wasn't a name. It was a frequency. The math of the image matches a very specific type of radiation called extreme ultraviolet light. This kind of light can only be made today with very expensive machines. It can change the color of a surface without creating any heat. Basically, the AI just told us that the Shroud was made by a high-powered light flash that lasted less than a billionth of a second. This flash was so fast and so strong that it printed the man's data into the fabric before the heat could even start a fire. It's not that simple, though, because some people think this flash wasn't a one-time event. There is a wild theory that the Shroud is actually a looping event. Because the math is so perfect, some scientists wonder if the image is being refreshed from another dimension every few seconds. If we could look at the cloth with a camera that takes 1 trillion frames per second, we might see the image disappearing and reappearing. The crazy part is that the AI found noise in the data that looks like a radio signal. It's as if the Shroud is still broadcasting a message that we haven't learned how to tune into yet. This changes everything because it means we aren't looking at a painting. We are looking at a snapshot of a physical event. And get this, the AI found that the math in the Shroud is so deep, it can be used to recreate a perfect digital human. We can now use the data in the cloth to build a virtual version of the man that is correct down to the millimeter. This is more data than we have on any other person from that long ago. So, here's the deal. The hidden code is actually a biological backup of a human being. The computer had revealed the how, but the what was getting even carrier as we looked at the blood. Genetic print of the impossible. If the math and the light weren't enough to blow your mind, the blood is where things get truly impossible. For a long time, skeptics said the red stains were just tempera paint or iron oxide. But when doctors and chemists got their hands on it, they found real hemoglobin. And get this, the blood is still red after 2,000 years. Normally, old blood turns brown or black as it dries and ages. But this blood looks like it was spilled yesterday. Basically, the blood is in a state of suspended animation, where it refuses to rot or change color. But here's the catch. The DNA in that blood is unlike anything we've ever seen. When researchers tried to sequence the genome, they found that the DNA was incredibly well preserved. It wasn't fragmented like most ancient samples. Instead, it looked fresh. It's not that simple, though, because the AI found that the DNA contains extra markers that don't match any known human race. It has all the parts of a human, but with a structural stability that shouldn't be possible. Some wild theorists suggest that this man wasn't just a normal human, but a hybrid or an improved version of our species. So, here's the deal. Some people think this blood is actually active. There are stories of scientists who touched the blood and felt a small electric shock. While that sounds like a campfire story, the AI scanned the electrical properties of the bloodstains and found a residual charge. It's as if the blood is still holding on to the energy from that massive light flash. What most people don't realize is that this blood could actually be used to clone the man on the cloth. We have enough data and enough living code to potentially bring this person back to life in a lab. And that's putting it lightly, because some think that's exactly what the Shroud was for. They believe it wasn't a burial cloth, but a seed pod meant to carry the genetics of a specific person across thousands of years until we had the tech to rebuild them. If that sounds like an alien plot, you're hitting on one of the biggest wild theories out there. Basically, the Shroud is a resurrection kit, left behind for a future generation. The AI found that the mathematical patterns in the image perfectly overlap with the DNA sequences in the blood. They are two halves of the same book. What most people don't realize is that the blood might not even be blood in the way we think. Some experts have suggested it is liquid light, or a biological material that has been turned into a semi-permanent crystal. This would explain why it hasn't turned brown. It isn't drying out because it isn't interacting with our atmosphere. So here's the deal. The man on the cloth is bleeding through a rift in reality. Every time we take a sample, we are taking a piece of a body that is technically still alive somewhere else. It gets crazier when you look at the wounds. The AI found that the injuries on the body are so medically accurate that they show things that weren't discovered by doctors until the 1900s. For example, the nails didn't go through the palms, but through the wrists. If you put a nail through a palm, the hand rips open and the body falls. But a nail through the wrist hits a specific nerve that causes the thumb to pull inward. And get this, the man on the shroud has his thumbs tucked in exactly that way. A medieval artist wouldn't know about that nerve reaction. Hands down, this is a level of medical detail that proves the body was real. But here's the catch. The wounds also show that the man was levitating when the image was made. The AI looked at the back of the body and found no flattening of the muscles. When you lie down on a hard stone, your back and buttocks flatten out from the weight. But this man looks like he is floating in midair. There is no pressure from the ground. Basically, the image was made while the body was weightless. This fits perfectly with the event horizon theory, where gravity stopped working inside the tomb. The more we dig into the biology of the cloth, the more it feels like a message from a higher dimension. Message left for modern humans. After looking at all the math, the AI findings, and the energy theories, we are left with a massive question. If science can't explain it, what does that mean for us? What most people don't realize is that the shroud is the only object in the world that gets more real the more you doubt it. Every time someone tries to prove it's a fake, they find a new piece of data that makes a fake impossible. And get this, the AI has now given us a digital lock that no forger could ever pick. We are looking at an image that holds more information than any painting in the world. If this cloth is what people think it is, then it is a literal snapshot of the impossible. It is a piece of evidence for an event that shouldn't be able to happen according to the rules of our world. It suggests that our understanding of life and death is missing a very big chapter. Basically, the shroud is a bridge between the world we can touch and a world we can only imagine. The AI didn't just find math, it found a message written in the language of the universe. It is a message that says there is more to our story than just atoms and dirt. If the shroud is real, then we have to change our history books. We have to admit that something happened 2,000 years ago that we still can't copy with all our billions of dollars in smart machines. It's not that simple, though, because it's not just about history, it's about the future. If a human body can do this, what are we really capable of? Are we all just sleeping energy, waiting for a flash to change us? It is a thought that keeps many people up at night. What most people don't realize is that the AI also found evidence of parallel realities in the cloth. When the computer analyzed the edges of the image, it found echoes of the man's face that were slightly different. It's as if the shroud captured 10 different versions of the same person from 10 different worlds, all stacked on top of each other. The crazy part is that this matches a theory in physics called the many worlds interpretation. It suggests the resurrection wasn't just a revival, but a collision of every possible universe into one single point. Is the Shroud of Turin a message from another world, or just a puzzle we aren't smart enough to solve yet? Could you be part of the same hidden code? Let us know in the comments. Like and subscribe for more.